It's a moment for clarity. So let me be clear. Peaceful protest in America. Violent protest is not protected. Peaceful protest is.
That was U.S. President Joe Biden on Thursday, speaking from the White House about the college protests that have swept the nation.
It's against the law when violence occurs. Destroying property is not a peaceful protest. It's against the law.
The president then provided a list of those behaviors that he considered within and outside of the law.
None of this is a peaceful protest. Threatening people, intimidating people, instilling fear in people is not a peaceful protest. It's against the law. Dissent is essential to democracy, but dissent must never lead to disorder or to denying the rights of others so students can finish the semester and their college education. There's the right to protest, but not the right to cause chaos.
President Biden then addressed alleged anti-Semitism on campus a day after both houses of Congress voted to codify a definition of anti-Semitism into the federal civil rights law to be determined by the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance. The law would amend Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which prohibits discrimination based on race and national origin.
Let's be clear about this as well. There should be no place on any campus, no place in America for anti-Semitism or threats of violence against Jewish students. There is no place for hate speech or violence of any kind, whether it's anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, or discrimination against Arab Americans or Palestinian Americans.
For more on all that, we go to Philadelphia to speak with Professor Tony Monteiro of the Saturday Free School. Professor Monteiro, there's a long record of college protest in the United States and a long record of the state dealing with it in one way or another. Perhaps we could start there.
Well, these protests that we've seen over the last few weeks sweeping college campuses are a great moment in American history and in the anti-war and pro-democratic and anti-genocidal struggles. In fact, I believe that the American people and humanity's peace forces owe a debt of gratitude to this generation of college students. I don't think that we've seen anything like this. I lived through the 1968 uprising of students, again, beginning at Columbia University. And I don't believe they reached this level. And it takes a great level of consciousness and clarity to protest for peace and against war when, in fact, no American troops are involved. So this great peace sentiment grows out of the young college students' rejection of genocide and the oppression of Palestinians. This is a turning point in the anti-war and political history of our country. By that I mean, we will never be what we were after these protests. And then more immediately, it is obvious that these protests and the dramatization of students across religious, ethnic, and racial lines, including in the forefront of these protests, large numbers of Jewish students who only a couple of years ago, if not less, would have considered themselves Zionists and definitely pro-Israel, are now shifting to siding with the oppressed and as such being on the right side of history. But we should have expected, as was the case, that the government of the United States, from the federal government down to local governments and to college administrators would repress these demonstrations. Again, there was nothing similar to this in 1968, when, for example, at Columbia, 1,000 cops, at least that's what they admit to, were involved in sealing off the area around Columbia University. And I am told there were tanks driving up and down Broadway and surrounding the area. This was a military operation worthy of a, quote, anti-terrorist operation against peaceful and unarmed students. Now, of course, Biden, after many days and being prodded by his supporters, came out with a weak statement, smearing the students as violent and as preventing other students from having a graduation. Well, I think there are a couple of things going on here. First of all, the smearing of the students and saying, in effect, that they're being controlled by outside agitators and anarchists. Nothing is further from the truth.
Isn't that a familiar one?
Yeah, very, very familiar. But then the fact that he did not speak on this matter for maybe 10 days indicates in my mind that his campaign is in crisis. They didn't know how to respond. But the other thing is, and I think this is huge in this whole matter, I think the Democrats are on the verge of pulling Biden altogether out of the campaign. They know that they may have the demonstrations on the campuses may have ended, but the students and the other anti-war, anti-Zionist forces will see the Democrats in Chicago in August at their convention. And there could be upwards of 1 million people descending on the Democratic Party convention, effectively making it impossible for them to hold a nominating convention. They have to pull Biden. The other thing is this clownish and desperate effort on the part of both houses of Congress in passing this bill concerning anti-Semitism, which is nothing of the sort. It is a bill attacking the right to criticize Israel and shutting down free speech and rendering any form of protest that opposes genocide and that equates what the Israeli state is doing with what the Nazis did in Europe in the 1930s and 40s. They want to shut that down. They realize that they are in a very politically difficult moment, a crisis. In fact, it sometimes looks like, and I'm not saying this is inevitable, but it looks like we could be on the cusp of systemic regime collapse, if not a deep crisis of the state.
And we will be following that as it develops. Professor Monteiro, thank you very much.
Thank you.
For KPFK, I'm Don DeBar.